yeah, as part of this introductory video, I thought, I might show you some of the stuff that I had notarized. Some of the stuff could actually still be patentable, but again, you're not going to be able to really make my handwriting out on this video. I can barely make it out, just by looking at it. But the fact of the matter is that, a lot of it, has been absconded with, too, since I came up with this, some of this stuff. I mean, I could have really, and this was just part of it, too. I mean, I could have actually really locked up the LED sign, LED lighting industry, particularly as with regards to signs, back there in the, 2002, 2003 time range. Like I said, I had the stuff notarized by my patent attorney back in 03. I actually drafted it up in, I think, 02 for the most part, but I usually put a date conceived by, and this is an example of a tack light, because I actually conceived this like in the late 90s. And this is my original concept for the tack light that I actually had notarized here. And, way back when. Again, some of these ideas might actually still have some commercial viability, believe it or not. I'm astonished, a lot of times seeing how close some people come to my ideas and they don't quite get it. They're just leaving a little something off that really makes the difference. But, like here, for example, as an example of, an early LED road flare idea that I had, for emergencies and stuff like that. And those have become very popular, but I had several ideas for those, and this dates back to the, mid to late 90s here. And it's actually still a version I haven't seen identically on the market yet, but still, the point is there's so many of those out there. Of course, Smart Strip is something that, some other mofos have run off with since then. Said freezer lights, for like grocery store freezers, which was actually my mom's idea, but, I back in 2003, but I kind of ran with it. Here's the patent for my little fridge light, or the little notarization for the fridge light, which I conceived of in the mid-90s, mid to late 90s. Color changing controllable light bulbs, which, you see pretty much everywhere these days. Again, this is back in 2002, 2003 that I had this drafted. So, let's see. But some of these things are kind of technical, so I won't really go into them. And, various methods for lighting can signs and things like that, and channel letter lighting systems. So, which some of these things are actually still viable, believe it or not. And could still be of some value, perhaps, if somebody hadn't sort of beat me to the punch. But in many ways, somebody's already run off with the ideas, too. So, partly because I had certainly some of this stuff out of the market, particularly some of our, Viperlux channel letter systems and so forth involving my Distrolight technology, which that aspect of it I can no longer patent, and which is a shame because GE would be paying me a hell of a lot of money today had I patented that thing. Because I had the patent worked up, which I'll actually show you in another video. So some of this is, a little bit of this is redundant because I actually show you this in another, like in the tack light video, I think tack light section, I think I show it to you. Again, a lot of these ideas are, kind of generic and stuff, but at the time, these applications just didn't exist. Like this office building lighting system, I've since seen somebody do this. The idea is to have these little displays, electronically controlled displays that are kind of networked, that go into the windows of an office building. So you can turn an office building. I mean, you've all seen, you've seen it, at office buildings sometimes turn the lights on, and there are certain rooms in the office building so they can mimic kind of a display on the side. Well, I was like, well, let's do this with LED so they don't have to do that anymore, and they could all be controlled and dynamic that way. So, my idea was to have a GMB system, but I've seen somebody come up with something like that since then, like 5 years ago or something like that. So, And again, this is back a long freaking time ago, you know, I was conceiving of ideas like this. So, you know, like this was something I conceived of in 99. So, you know, the fact of the matter is, though, I had a customer, you know, my client, who we were a captured, you know, company, basically. So I only had one client, and I couldn't do business with anybody else on LED-related stuff, you know, in any way, shape, or form. He'd drop us, and that actually precluded a lot of business. I actually had to drop my first customer over it because his was substantially an LED product, you know, because of that whole affair I got into with him. So, but at the end of the day, you know, back in those days, I couldn't do anything with this IP unless he wanted to do something with it. And, you know, his words, and this is what he told me in 98, and this after, you know, the 2 years prior to 98, you know, every week I made it my goal to come into him with a different product idea and pitch him on it. And he never once went with any of them. Yet, if he'd listened to me, he'd been 10 times richer than he is now. We would have owned the digital gas sign markets, you know, the digital gas signs you see on all the gas stations these days that are LED. Well, you know, guess what? I thought of that back in 91. And, you know, well before I ever met him, and I tried selling him that since almost day one. And even though he had people coming and knocking on his door wanting these things, you know, he still wouldn't go for it. Because like I said, in 98, after 2 years of coming into his doors with one LED product idea after another, one a week, at least one a week, he finally said, Robert, you know, that's a good idea, you know, it's kind of radical, you know, but you should keep that in your file, and, you know, but you got to know something about me, you know, I just generally don't like pursuing a product unless somebody else has done it first. So I'm like, oh my God, I mean, I'm dealing with a copycat. This guy only copycat stuff. See, I like doing original work. You know, I like coming up with original ideas and, you know, original concepts, at least as much as possible. And, you know, I really just don't like people that do nothing but copycat, you know, because that goes against my nature. I'm an innovator, not a copycat. I come up with my own ideas, you know, as much as possible anyway. So, you know, the fact of the matter is, you know, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But, you know, still, that was in 98 that he finally told me that. I was like, man, I just wasted the last 2 years, you know, coming in and telling him about all these ideas. But, you know, like I said, give it, you know, fast forward the clock another 4 years. Well, my ex-employees are running off with him. So, should have had a non-disclosure, non-compete signed with my employees. I know that. But like I said, I never had a contract with the guy because he always said, Robert, I like to keep my options open. So, you know, for 6 years that I did business with that guy, you know, my future was wrapped around his middle finger, and I knew it. So that was a very, very uncomfortable thing. I had a couple $1 million worth of revenue flow through my accounts. I mean, we did pretty well overall, you know, right up until my employees absconded with him. But, you know, it was kind of a good thing in a way, because it finally freed me to go out and, you know, launch, you know, the CSSL initiative. But then the fire wiped that out a year later as it was just getting launched. So, which was ridiculous, and that ain't the only time that's happened to me. That brings me to this, you know, which is my Workswell catalog. You know, it's been a lifelong dream to have a catalog full of nothing but my own products, and that's what this is. I spent 8 months drafting this together. But the fact of the matter is, you know, my creditors, basically, it's after the fire. You know, fire happened in 2003, you know, August 1st, 2003, and I spent like 5 years trying to fend off creditors and sue insurance companies, you know, over the thing. And like I said, you know, they finally, you know, we went into mediation with the insurance company, and my, you know, bank, you know, was the first in line, you know, to receive any proceeds from it. My attorney tried to get them to be an attendance. He thought he could get more money out of them that way if they attended, you know, since we owed them $250,000 at the time. But, you know, they basically told us to get lost, and my attorney was just dumbfounded by how they behaved. There was just something weird going on with that whole thing. And I know that because another bank, you know, anyway, it was a long story, you know, like I said, I'll tell you about it someday if you're interested. But the fact of the matter is that, anyway, so after the settlement, it certainly wasn't enough money to settle with all my creditors, you know, it'd be like 25 cents on the dollar. There's no way that ever happened. You know, I spent over a month trying to figure out how that happened, but then no creditors after the settlement occurred, you know, came knocking on my door, and I was like, well, what do I do? You know, because like I said, I still netted, you know, some money out of that whole affair. So I was like, well, the only thing I can do, and like I said, I want to set this thing right. I mean, I don't want to, you know, don't really care to settle with my creditors. I like to pay them what I owe them. You know, but the only way that's going to happen is when I get back on my feet here. You know, and like I said, it was after a fire, major freaking disaster, and then I'd, you know, spending years struggling to try to be a sign company and everything, with trying to make signs with stone knives and bear skins. But I had learned how to actually sell. I finally figured that out, and it was the predecessor of this catalog, which I don't know if I've got one of those here to handy. But yeah, like I said, the predecessor to this was like a little 4-page deal that I just kind of drafted up in, you know, in CorelDRAW, and it was printed out on a black and white laser printer. But basically, you know, I went out there and I got a, you know, statistically speaking, you know, I did enough to get a good statistical sample out of it. I distributed enough. But basically I got like a 12% response rate off of it, which is practically unheard of. I'd never gotten any kind of response out of advertising, any advertising effort I'd ever done, before or since, you know, from such a thing. And again, this is that on steroids. This is a 32-page catalog, full color, professionally printed. But, you know, and I you know, like I said, I got not only a 12% response rate, but also 4% hit rate. So that means 4% just placed orders directly. And holy hell, I mean, I'd have to struggle before that just trying to do direct sales. That's why I suck at sales. I mean, I made over 1,150 doors that I stopped in, including the distribution of those catalogs I was talking about. But most of them, I didn't have those types of ads with me. And like I said, just doing regular sales efforts, I mean, I got you know, I'd have a 50% penny rate, which is pretty common, you know, when you're going to retail businesses. You know, 50% of the time, the guy you want to talk to is there, 50% of the time they aren't. So that's what I call the penny rate, or penetration rate. You know, getting through the people you don't want to talk to the people you do want to talk to. But just right off the bat, it's 50% penny rate. But again, I'd have to struggle just to reach a final 1% sales rate. You know, 1% hit rate. You know, converting those contacts into actual customers, into actual sales. So my conversion rate was really low after a struggle. And here, you know, with the predecessor to this, I was getting right off the bat 4% hit rate. You know, which is unbelievable. So, again, I'd proven the concept had worked. I mean, I knew how to generate sales, but that's what I decided to do with most of that settlement money, is not only replace equipment and stuff that I needed and lost in the fire, so I wasn't working with stone knives and bear skins anymore, but also, you know, spend my time on this and launch and do this thing right, because I knew this thing would pay off, because this is that other catalog on steroids. So, and like I said, that little, you know, it was just really a, you know, legal-sized sheets of paper folded in half, and I need to pin one of those damn things on my wall or something. I'm so sick of needing one and not having. You know, I never distributed any of these because about 3 weeks before I was going to launch, one of my creditors finally pulled my plug. They finally showed up, cleaned out my bank account, and I needed the working capital to make this thing work. So as a result, I mean, I got like 2,600 of these catalogs that are never going to see the light of day. You know, I'll never know how well they could have done. So, you know, like I said, it's got tons of products in here. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, who knows? It would have been nice to see how well these did, but it's one of those things I'm never going to know. So, which is a shame, because that was a hell of a lot of effort that I put in to have nothing to show for it. But okay, but here, this is not the actual ad I'm talking about. The actual ad I was talking about, you know, is in the shape of a booklet. It was folded in half, legal-size sheet of paper, but there was another piece in here stapled in, so it's effectively an 8-page little booklet. Had exactly the same information in here, you know, drawn exactly the same way, same graphics, same copy, same prices. everything. The only difference was a different format. The other looked more like a catalog, and this didn't. Now, I distributed 156 of each of these to a similar demographic. This format and the other format. This format got background noise. No different than any other sales effort I conducted in signage. The other format, again, same information, just different look to it. Because I did actually have kind of a cover to it and some stuff like that. It actually looked a little more professional, even though, again, it's the same black and white print. Like I said, all the stuff I drew in here, I drew in Corel Draw as line art. So these are just a bunch of line drawings. all they are. There are very few actual pictures in here. And then clearly these don't look like actual, shots of real products or anything. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is that 156 of each, that got 12% response rate, 4% hit rate. This got 0% response rate and no real hit rate at all. So outside of what I'd normally have to do, because that's what I'd have to do, previous to that catalog, is I'd have to go, knock on a bunch of doors and then find people that look like they might be interested, and then just keep coming back over and over and over and over again. So, I just kept having to bug the hell out of them, wait 2 or 3 weeks, come back, wait 2 or 3 weeks, come back. I mean, sometimes I went back to some of these people half a dozen times before I got an order, and some of them I never got an order out of. That's what I had to go through prior to that. It was looking like the whole thing was a dud, but that's why, like I said, because of that work and that statistic, that's why I did this catalog, because I knew it would work. I mean, I'd never seen a response rate or even heard of it, because I know even direct mail, only gets a 1% response rate, generally, or 1% hit rate max. It was really surprising the result this got. So, quite fascinating. Given what I did with it. So, and like I said, you should note too, I had to cut through the chase on this. I mean, I didn't want to spend several years being a sign company, which I hated being a sign company, by the way. Oh, I hated it. That doesn't stop me from trying, though. Just because I hate something is no excuse to not try. As long as I believe in it, I'll work my ass off on anything. As long as I believe in it, no matter how much I hate it. And this was no exception, since I finally worked out a way of doing it. It's worth spending 8 months on this after that settlement, which again wasn't enough to settle with the creditors. So, but if I can get back on my feet, I figured, it's doing it the hard way. I mean, it'd be easier to declare bankruptcy and just get out from under it at that point. But still, I just kind of the type of person that believes a deal is a deal. I just, like to pay my debts. But at the end of the day, again, 2,600 of these things. 3 weeks before launch, one of my creditors, and wasn't even the main creditor in line either, my bank. They're not the one that did it to me. It was one of the more minor creditors behind them that actually caught up with me and cleaned out my bank account. So, at the end of the damn day, I can't work with people like that. I mean, if those guys do not want to get paid back, then I can't help them. So, I showed them this catalog, at least the prototype of this catalog, and, well, I guess they decided to do things differently. So, at the end of the day, it just kind of proved to me those creditors weren't worth crap, again, I spent 5 years trying to set it right. I spent 5 years trying to sue those stupid insurance companies. I didn't think I was ever see a dime on it. I didn't think I was going to lay my hands on any of that money. Well, my creditors were going to abscond with it. That was kind of the expectation at the time. I mean, but I was just doing that so those insurance companies, or that insurance company that we had to sue, wasn't going to get away with it. But I didn't think I was doing it for my own benefit. So, my creditor, especially my bank, was due to get those proceeds. But again, they, for some reason, didn't want anything to do with it. I don't know. You can speculate a lot, but there's just something fishy going on there. They started getting real funny once the insurance company that we're suing deposed my bank. So, I don't know, what that was all about, but they started getting real funny after that. But at the end of the day, that's kind of in a nutshell sort of what happened in that sordid affair, But like I said, too, out of this catalog, I'll also have you note, there are only pretty much every image you see in here I drew. there's only 35 real pictures in this catalog. Again, there's one real picture on the face of this catalog, for example. Can you pick it out? It's this one. So, but most of these I drew completely, 3D CAD and all that stuff. So I had to learn how to do that, because I didn't know anything about 3D CAD before I started this. So, believe it or not, I'd always wanted to learn it, but I never had the occasion to. But anyway, the fact of the matter is that it's certainly a fulfillment of a lifelong dream, finally having a catalog full of my own products, which I wanted since I was in my teens. But the fact of the matter is, it'll never see the light of day because, again, I was stuck with 2,600 of them, never got to distribute any of these. So, oh, by the way, I thought you'd be interested, because like I said, I forgot to explain this, there's only 35 real pictures in this, catalog. Well, the reason I had to do that is because, like I said, it would have taken me, the only other way to do this at the time, or almost any of them, again, there are some real pictures in here, keep in mind, but, pretty much all these ideas are brand new, straight out of the id. But at the end of the day, it would have taken 50 grand and 2 or 3 years for me to actually build and prototype these ideas, and then go do things like offer, say, hey, Mr. Store Owner, can I hang these in your window? You can have them free of charge. I just need to take some pictures of it. Well, that's very fine and dandy. In fact, I actually did that with these. That's where some of these real pictures came from, although this I actually sold. But the fact of the matter is, that would have been very time consuming. Again, I had creditors that were eventually I knew going to come knock on my door. Couldn't do that. I had to take some shortcuts on this. I did not like being a sign company. I hated it. But like I said, just because I hate something doesn't mean I'm going to give up at it. If I believe in it, I'll stick with it to the bitter end. I don't know when to quit until it just makes no more sense to continue whatsoever. And that's basically what happened when the creditors pulled my plug. Like I said, that just kind of proved to me those guys weren't worth fighting for. After spending 5 years trying to fight for them to get their money, to them, and hoping that insurance company might pay out something, because I didn't think I was going to lay my hands on any of it, but as luck would have it, I did. And I said, the only way I'm going to actually set this right is to pay everybody back 100% of what I owe them, not 25 cents on the dollar. They're never going to be happy with that. There's no way I can conceive of negotiating a settlement on that front. So at the end of the day, I figured, well, I knew how to generate sales here. I hated being a sign company, but I knew how to make it work. And, it's not the easy road, but it's the hard road. But it might take me 5 or 10 years to pay them off doing this. But, that's what I was willing to do. Thank God one of them pulled my plug. I actually thank the creditor that did it, because at the end of the day, they weren't worth fighting for. If they're not going to do what's in their best interest, how do they expect somebody to pay them back if they just keep cleaning their clock every time they try to get on their feet? That's just never going to work. So, at the end of the day, I figured out how to do it, but, it just wasn't going to happen. But the point is that, again, I could do this, even though none of these products, for the most part, existed. I certainly did the time motion studies and design work and everything else. I knew how to build them, how much they're going to cost, and how much profit I needed to make to survive in the sign industry. And, basically, so I was able to cost everything out and price everything. So everything has prices in it. I don't believe in catalogs that don't have prices in it. The fact of the matter is, though, is that, I could take advantage of the fact of the long lead times that are typical to the sign industry. I mean, it's not uncommon to have a 4 to 6 week or more lead time, on a sign order. It's not at all uncommon. And as long as I didn't get any money down from, a customer, then I was taking a risk on a product that I, didn't exist, out of my own pocket. That's why I needed working capital, because I could not ask, because it's traditional in the sign industry to get a 50% deposit off a customer. But again, since the products didn't exist, well, it's almost tantamount to fraud, for me to actually ask for a 50% down payment on something that really doesn't exist, but it looks like it does, But again, it's really just about communicating to people. So that's what the whole point of what the idea is, because I knew I can come out with a product that looks substantially the same. is what I designed and drew here. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's where it was all coming from. I didn't want to spend 10 years in an industry I hated trying to get up to where I did really legitimately have products like this to take pictures of and just realize I hated the thing to begin with. It was just a shortcut, a way to where I didn't have to waste any more time in the sign industry, because if this didn't bear that kind of fruit, the sooner I found out, the better, because I wanted to see what ultimate fruit this could build up to, because I knew this had actual direct mail opportunities waiting for it too if this succeeded, like I thought it would. I mean, it's not out of the question to start sending these out direct mail at some point, at least future editions of the catalog. So the point is that I could see it being a growth situation and something worth pursuing. So that's why I thought it was worthwhile to mess with it to some extent, because I could still see some good money coming out of this eventually, to where it might make it all worthwhile. Because, it certainly does have that potential, as a catalog. And like I said, again, when I came up with this idea, that's why I resisted so much at first, because nobody was doing it. Nobody in the sign industry, no sign company I ever heard of, was putting their own catalog out there. And, so I didn't think it would work. That's why it took me so long to come, because I've been a big fan of catalogs my entire life. But this is one case where I didn't think catalogs would work, but as it turns out, no, they do. They do. The predecessor to this, showed me that. So, worked with bells on, in fact. So, at the end of the day, that was back in 2005, that I was a sign company, lasted clear through 2007, until those creditors pulled my plug, spent 2008, in the process of declaring bankruptcy, which was another big mess, and then 2009, finally got out of it and tried doing this Inspiration Corporation thing, because I had a color laser printer full of ink. So, I was like, well, I'll give that a try, even though I don't know anything about that industry. So, I tried throwing together a little kit like this, for graphic design, is what it was all about, for a graphic design business I was trying to start. But of course, that was right in the middle of the recession. So, at the end of the day, that wasn't going to go anywhere. So, I'd never seen such a low penny rate. I mean, I went up there and made 350 contacts on this in the middle of 2009, and my penny rate was 4%. That means I talked to 12 people out of that. And some of those seemed interested, but I actually didn't get any money out of this. This was the first business effort I'd ever conducted where I actually didn't make a dime out of it. I was really astonished. But at the end of the day, anything you've got a 4% penny rate on, you're never going to sell anything, because sales is a numbers game. That's the one thing I've learned over and over and over again. Even when I first started business over 20 years ago, I had a 35% penny rate in the Terra Technica affair. At the end of the day, that was back when America was the land of milk and honey. There was opportunity coming out the woodwork back then. There was tons of opportunity back then for somebody like me to make a damn good living. And, Terra Technica and having $2 million flow through my bank account was living proof of that over the ensuing 6 years of me being in business. But, at the end of the day, it's had its ups and downs. I mean, I certainly started out broke and poor and, rich. I mean, hell, when I launched into business, I hadn't even had a job for, a year. In fact, I started out being on unemployment and, for like 6 months back then, because I was laid off in September 22nd, 2004. 1994, actually. And it was, September 22nd, 1995, I decided to form a business. I kind of managed to skate by, working for my relatives and stuff every now and then, which is some of what I do now. But that's about it. And, but I sure know what it's like to be broke. I started that way. I mean, I was never rich. I come from a single parent household, lower middle class. Good for nothing dad. No child support from my good for nothing dad. you know, who left me after I was born. I mean, I saw him like 3 times. You know, he didn't show up until after I graduated, and he thought he didn't have to pay child support anymore. You know, that's the only reason I even know what happened to him. But at any rate, the fact of the matter is that, you know, like I said, I don't start from wealth, but I certainly acquired it. You know, I certainly know in that, you know, Terra Technica for that 6 years or so I was doing that, what it's like to not be rich, but at least moderately wealthy. I know what it's like to have $180,000 a year of play money. So, of course, which I dutifully invested back in my company. So, my backstabbing ex-employees couldn't understand why I didn't, you know, have my own, you know, sports cars and yachts and everything, so I was constantly investing back in the company. You know, because my future was wrapped around, in fact, our future was wrapped around, you know, one guy's middle finger. You know, that's our ex-customer, so, who they ran away with later on. So, at the end of the day, yeah, that was a pretty sordid affair.